Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. The world is increasingly and constantly changing, making it hard to keep up. Normal is no longer capable of upholding the promise of tomorrow's certainty. These are uncertain times. Pandemics like the corona and now Omicron variants, climate change leading to extreme weather events, driverless cars, fake news, alternative facts, artificial intelligence, disruptive technologies that disrupt and often corrupt everything. Everything seems to be in a state of flux. Nothing can be trusted. All that we regard as normal is melting away right before us. In this storm of ignorance and uncertainty, perhaps it is important to reflect for a while and remind ourselves of our mission in life and the purpose of our existence. We know from the Quran that human beings are, firstly and essentially, spiritual and moral beings with the physical body. Human beings' spiritual nature and essence is clearly revealed by Allah in the Quranic verse, which is the primordial covenant between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and all human beings in the pre-existential states. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ أخذ ربك من بني آدم من ظهورهم ذريتهم وأشهدهم على أنفسهم ألست بربكم قالوا بلى شهدنا أن تقولوا يوم القيامة إنا كنا عن هذا غافلين. And recall, O Prophet, when your Lord brought forth descendants from the loins of the sons of Adam and made them witnesses against themselves, asking them, Am I not your Lord? They said, Yes, we testify, lest you should say on the day of resurrection, Verily, we have been unaware of this. According to Islam, a number of aspects serve as the foundation on which the concept of humanity ultimately rests. Islam considers the human being as an individual in its total, wherein his or her material and spiritual needs are united together as one. There is no artificial distinction between the two, as claimed by other cultures. This ayah emphasizes our spiritual nature and inherence and our God-inclined fitrah. The Quran explains in another verse that man's natural disposition is fitrah. It is none other than his innate spiritual nature referred to in the verse on the primordial covenant. It is the universal, unchanging nature of the human constitution, as indicated in Surah Ar-Rum. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. فَأَقِمْ وَجْهَكَ لِلدِّينِ حَنِيفًا فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا لَا تَبْدِيلَ لِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمُ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. In which the Prophet ﷺ and his followers are asked to set your face single-mindedly to the true faith and adhere to the nature, that is fitrah, on which Allah has created men. There is no altering the laws of Allah's creation. That is the right religion, but most men know not. In a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ transmitted by Bukhari and Muslim, the Prophet said that every child is born on a state of fitrah, and it is only his parents that later turn him into a Jew or a Christian or Magian. It is important to distinguish also that a human being, according to Islam, is not a fallen being, as asserted in different cultures. And human existence on earth is not a sentence passed on him or her by God on account of what transpired between Adam and Eve, the first man and the first woman, in the Garden of Eden. Having remembered about the innate nature of man and his primordial covenants with God Almighty, the question still is, what is the purpose of our existence? In Surah Al-Baqarah, God Almighty says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك قال إني أعلم ما لا تعلمون. And when your Lord said to the angels, Indeed, I will make upon the earth a successive authority, they said, We will place upon it one who causes corruption therein, and sheds blood, while we declare your praise and sanctify you? Allah said, indeed, I know that which you do not know. As we can see, a man is God's vicegerent on earth, entrusted with the honorable task of inhabiting it, in accordance with the divine guidance provided. The vicegerent is more of divinely guided spokesman of Allah, or divinely connected representative of Allah in the human form, who should be as a mercy to mankind. God Almighty asks in Surah Al-Qiyamah, أَيَحْسَبُ الْإِنسَانُ أَيُّتْرَكَ سُدًى? Does man think that he will be left neglected? Humans were not created in vain. Rather, they were created with a definite mission in life. That is to fulfill their role as Allah's Khalifa, to become His obedient servants, and thus to manage the universe well. In another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that He created not the jinn and mankind except that they should worship Him. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. In a hadith Qudsi reported by Abu Huraira, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, O sons of Adam, busy yourself in worshipping me, and I will fill your chest with riches and dissipate your poverty. Otherwise, I will fill your chest with distracting affairs and will not do away with your poverty. Being a vicegerent entails to improve the world for and on behalf of Allah, to apply the orders and recommendations of Allah among people, animals, and non-living things. As a vicegerent, he must be just and grateful to Allah, as He has created the nature and has created all of the means in it abundantly enough to meet the normal needs of all of the beings. As stated in Surah Ibrahim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. And He gives you of all that you ask for. But if you count the favors of Allah, never will you be able to number them. Verily, man is given up to injustice and ingratitude. Explaining more about the purpose of man's existence in Surah Al-Mulk, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. He who created death and life so that He may test you as to which of you is better in his deeds. And He is the exalted in might, the most forgiving. One should note that this verse also serves as a warning to mankind, as Allah knows that the only being that can consume things beyond his needs excessively without knowing any limits in extravagance is man. When Allah gave man an ambition of excessive consumption and desires, and also gave man the duty, it is in order to test him, whether or not he would limit his desires and submit to the will of the Almighty. As a matter of fact, while meeting his needs, man is instructed not to disturb the balance of the living and non-living nature that surrounds him, and even more, tries to protect it. Thus, he is expected to become sort of mercy for his environment. Hence, the first duty of the vicegerent is being in charge of executing God's laws on earth. As pointed out in a hadith, it is to take the encompassing mercy and compassion and then reflect it on the beings. This is the fundamental mission of man on earth, and what beautifies man makes him effective and makes him worthy of carrying his name as someone who was created in the best mold, as it is expressed by the Quran, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. Verily, we created man in the best stature. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also refers to man as the most honorable creature. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. And we have certainly honored the children of Adam and carried them on the land and sea and provided for them of the good things and preferred them over much of what we have created with definite preference. The superior faculties like mind and intelligence are two agents which distinguish man from all of the other living and non-living beings. Allah has given guidance that making use of these two faculties man will understand and know when and how to execute the mission of vicegerency correctly. There are many verses in the Quran that point it out, and also verses that criticize man for not using those faculties correctly. The most important thing is that man is asked to pay attention to two criteria while making use of them. The first one is to make use of nature in a legitimate way, and secondly, not to act like a harmful creature, breaking and harming the order that Allah has established in nature. This issue is emphasized in many verses and hadith, mentioning that man needs to check his desires, not to deify his soul, should avoid extravagance, and should try to feel contented and not to go to extremes.